Hi, is anyone available? Hi, Shikhar. Shikhar, we will wait for a couple of minutes and then we will start. Is it fine for you? Shikhar, I am audible. Can you please confirm on chat? Seems there is a delay in the communication. So, Shikhar, let me introduce myself. I am Saurabh Jain and I am working in a multinational IT company for the last 20 years. And I have worked in multiple development languages like C, C++, Java, Visual Basic, PHP, servlets. And for the last 8 years, I am working in Excel and VBA. I have done multiple transition and development projects in VBA, and I am associated with training institutes for training and development and also doing freelancing activity. I've started YouTube channel last year and now I'm starting live sessions on Excel and VBA. This is my first live session and need your support to make it successful. So, while I'm presenting the Excel and will present the information. Whatever queries you have, you can share in the chat, and I will include those queries in the session itself. So today we will learn the basics of the VBA and then understand the VBA environment. So let's start. So this is the Excel sheet, and if you would like to work in VBA, then you need two things. One is you must understand that developer option must be visible. If this is not visible, then you need to go to File menu, and then in Options there is Trust Center. There is a Customize ribbon option, and in that this developer option should be checked. So if your Excel sheet is not showing developer option, please make sure that you have enabled this option. Once you select this, you can click OK. Beside the developer option, we have security settings in Excel macros. So if you go into File again and then click on Options, then go into the Trust Center and go to Trust Center settings. Now you will find four macro settings here. The first is about disable all macros without notification. It says that if you have selected this option, your macro will not run. If you select the second option, it means your macros will be disabled, but you will get a notification from Excel and you can enable your macros in the runtime. The third option says that it will disable all the macros except if any macro is digitally signed. And the fourth option is says that it will enable all the macros. Microsoft doesn't recommend this option, but if we are creating our own workbox, then we can select this option to make sure that macros are enabled, and when we execute them, it will run in our system. But suppose if you're working in a very secured environment where your organization is not allowing you to enable all the macros, in that case you can select disable all macros with notification, and you can use trusted locations option. Now this location says that if you select any location here, then your Excel file will not will not be disabled, right? And if any Excel file is available in this location, it will run the macro. For all other locations, it will throw the notification and it will not enable your macros by default, right? So to add any location, trusted location, and then there is a add new location button. If you click on this, it will ask for the location. You can browse and then you can select any location. So suppose I said in C drive, I'm selecting say Excel files, or you can say Excel live sessions. Okay. Okay, now this location is added into the trusted locations. Click OK and then just make sure that interest and okay, click OK. Now I'm just making sure that I have selected the second option. So I'm going to the trust center settings, and then the macro settings. So second option is selected. Okay, okay. Now, if there are some files which have the macros, so I'm running this file. If I run this file, so it's taking time. So if I run this file, it will show me the security warning. So this is the notification that my macro is disabled. But if I copy this file in my, but if I copy this file in my trusted location, so my trusted location is Excel Live Sessions, paste this file. Now I'm opening this file, which is in my trusted location. So when I open this file, it will not showing any notification because this is the trusted location. So automatically the macros will be enabled. So these are the two things which we have to take care while you are working in the macros. Now make sure that when you are writing your macros, your file must be saved with extension .xlsm, which is macro enabled Excel files. So if you go into the file, save as, then you must select Excel macro enabled workbook option, right? So once you added the developer option, you are ready to write your macros. So if you click on the developer option, select the Visual Basic option, and it will open the VBA editor. So if this is, right hand side window is blank, so double click on the sheet 1, so it will open the code window. Now this window will show the all the objects as a workbook as well as all the worksheets which are available in the worksheet. So if I have more than one worksheet, so currently it's sheet 1, if I added one more, then the VB editor will show me the two sheets and the workbook, right? So this window is known as Project Explorer. This is known as the code window. Then if you go into the properties window, go to view option and then select properties window. Now it will open the properties window. This is my properties window, right? This is my code window. And there are other windows like immediate window, locals window, watch window, which is used for the debugging purpose. And we will work on this in the later sessions, right? So code window is a place where we have to write our code. But again, if you click on the sheet 1, there is one code window. If you click on sheet 2, there is another code window. If you click on this workbook, there is another code window, right? So there are three places, and then you can add module and the user form also. So in the beginning, we will not write macros in the sheets or the workbook because it is used when we are handling any events. So in the beginning, we will write our macros in the modules. And for the modules, you can right click in the Explorer and then select Insert and then Module, or you can go in the Insert menu option and then select Module. If you click this, it will add a module. Now this is the window where we are writing our common codes, right? So now to write the macro, remember that in VBA we have to use the object hierarchies. And in VBA, all the VBA codes are written inside the sub procedure or a function. So in VBA, to create a sub procedure, you have to write keyword sub, and then you have to write a sub procedure name or a function name, which is a kind of a variable. So any name you can use, but there are some rules for this variable name. So suppose I said my first program, and then if you press enter, automatically VBA will create a space for you, right? And the subroutine will finish with end sub, and we have to write our code inside this sub procedure. Now remember, there are few rules which we have to follow. The one is that you can't use the VBA keywords for the variable name. So suppose there's a keyword called dim for the, if I try to use this, it will throw the error that it's expected identifier. And dim is not a identifier for VBA. It's a keyword. So you can't use that. Then your function name or the sub procedure name or the variable name must begin with a letter. You can't start with a digit or a special character. So if you use this, it will again throw the error that identifier is expected. If you try to use a special character, then also it will throw the error. So make sure you are not using any special characters. You can use underscore, but in not in the beginning. So this is the sub procedure. So in this way you can write the sub procedure. Now inside the sub procedure we have to use the object hierarchy. Now remember, in VBA we have to use object hierarchy. Now when we have to interact with the Excel sheet, the hierarchy will be application dot workbooks dot worksheets and dot range. This is not the correct syntax, but just to mention that what is the hierarchy which we have to use when we are working with the Excel sheet from VBA. Now remember, now here the application is your Microsoft Excel, right? Because every time we are writing the code and we are using the Excel, so there is no need to mention the application keyword. If you are using the same workbook or same Excel file in which you want to write your macro, you don't have to mention this hierarchy also. Now we have to use our hierarchy, or we have to begin our hierarchy from worksheets, and in the worksheets you have to specify the worksheet name in on which you have to work. So worksheets, and then you have to specify the name sheet 1, right? So suppose my sheet 2 name is data, and if you want to access this worksheet, you have to say worksheets data dot range. Now the range refers the cell. So you can directly use the cell reference. So if I said A3, so it means it is now referring the A3 cell of datasheet. And if I put here range C7, so now it is referring C7 cell of sheet 1 worksheet. So this is the object hierarchy which we have to remember. Now in uh, Excel or in VBA, to show any information, we are using message box, MSG box. Now all these things we will learn in details, but just to understand the other concepts, I'm using it so that you can understand that how the hierarchy or how the range or how the other objects and properties methods will work, right? So right now we will use message box but without any brackets, and then whatever is mentioned it will show in the form of the message box. Similarly, we can use message box here, message MSG box, and then give the space, and then it will get the data from this. So now I'm going into the Excel sheet. Now if you say sheet 1 and then what we have referred C7. So suppose I said in C7 I said this is cell C7, right? And in data we can write A3. So you can say data sheet. So now to run the macro, you can keep your cursor within the sub procedure and then you can press run subroutine or you can press F5. So if I press F5 or click this button, then it will show this is cell C7, which is from sheet 1. Click OK. Now it will show the second message box having the information from A3 cell. So in this way, you can capture the value from the any cell in from any of the any worksheet. Again, if you are, if there is any point which you think that you are unable to understand, just comment so that I can capture it in the session. Right? So similarly, like we have used uh, the function name. Similarly, we can use uh, the variables also. So you know that in any um, programming language, the variables are used to store the values. So in VBA also, we can use the variables to store any value. So to declare a variable in VBA, we use keyword dim. So dim, and then you have to mention the variable name. So again, you have to keep in mind the rules for the variable names. So suppose I said my var as, and then you have to specify the data type. Now in VBA, there are different kind of data types. So suppose I said it's a string value. A string means it can contains any string or text value. Then we have integer value. We have the uh, we have the long. We have double, right? So integer is the range. Now the integer variable has range. It's -32767 to 32768. Now if you have the value more than that, then you have to use the long variable. And if you want to use any value having decimal numbers, then you have to use double. For text, you have to use the string. And then for Boolean values, there is a variable, there is a data type called Boolean. So suppose I said dim my age as integer, and I set them my population as integer, right? So I said that range of the integer is minus 32,767 to 32,768. So just make sure that when you are storing the value, it should be in the range. The value should be in the range of the data type. So suppose I said population equals to 30,000, then it is in the range. There is no issue, and we can display the message, use the message box to display the population. Now in VBA, to comment any line so that VBA should not execute any line, you can use slash sign apostrophe or keyword REM. Now in this, after mentioning this keyword or slash or apostrophe sign, then these line will not be executed. Now if I run the macro, it will show the message box having the population value. Now suppose if I increase the value, now integer value can contains value until 32,767, so it is out of the range. So if I now run the program or run the macro, it will throw the error overflow, which means that the variable can't contain this value. And if you debug this, it will highlight the line. So you have to change the data type to long. So now again, if I run the program, now it will show the message box having the population. So while declaring the variable, you must have to make sure that the value should be in the range of the data types. Now the message box. Now similarly, we can define the constant also. The keyword is const and then my constant equals to 10. Remember, when you are defining a constant variable or constant value, then you have to define the value also. Now you can't change the value of this constant. So in the program, if I try to change my, now you don't, in VBA, there is a one good functionality that you don't have to write the complete variable name which you have already declared. So once you start typing now my constant is already declared, and if I want to use it, just press Control and space and it will show you all the variables name or all the other values which is starting from my. So my constant is available here. It is also showing my age and everything. So if I use my and then I say C, then right, it will display the variable name. So my constant is equal to my constant plus 10. If you try to assign any value in the constant, then VBA will not allow you. So it will throw an error, assignment to constant not permitted. So if you change the value within the program, define it as a variable. If you make it as a fixed value, you can define it as a constant value. I got a one question that if the data is in other column or cell, how can the message display? So what it means, are you saying that if there is any other? So suppose if the value is in F10 here like this, then This is in data sheet, so you can say F10, and then you can, I'm just commenting this line because it is throwing an error, and then run the macro. It will show the value of the other cells or other columns. So you have to define the cell address here within the range. And so let me know, if this is exactly your query, or if I didn't understand, just reword your query so that I can understand. Right. So now to understand more, in VBA we can use the mathematical operators also. So for VBA, for addition, we are using plus sign. For subtraction, we are using minus or slash hash sign. Then for multiplication, it's a star sign. For division, it's a division, it is slash. Then for power, the sign. And for remainder, you have to use mod. So we can use these operators to do any mathematical calculation. Abbreviation of sub, s- okay. So abbreviation of sub is the sub procedure. So it's a sub procedure, or you can say in other means in VBA we can write our program either within sub procedure or in a function. So function is also defined in the same way, my function, like this. The only difference between subroutine and function is that subroutine can't return any value, but function can return any value. So we use function if we want to return some values, and we will learn in detail about the functions, how we can use these functions, and how we can create our own custom functions, which we can help in, while we are doing any calculation within the Excel sheet. So, but right, these are the two things which we have to remember, that all the codes are written inside the subroutine or the functions. Outside the subroutine or function, we can just declare the variables or the constants. So the VBA module has only three parts. The one is the variable declaration section, second is the subroutines, and the function part. We can create any number of functions or any number of subroutines within the module, right? Now, when you are declaring a variable, so there are two ways. One is either you can declare the variable outside the function or outside the subroutine, or you can declare inside the subroutine. So you can declare a variable inside as integer like this, right? The only difference is that when you declare a variable inside the subroutine, then the scope of this variable is only this subroutine. It means if I try to use this variable outside this subroutine, then VB will throw error. Now, the main part is that VBA will not, force you to declare any variable. But if we want that every variable must be declared inside the VBA, then you can use a keyword called option explicit. Now this keyword says that every variable must be declared in VBA before using it. So I have declared a variable inside var, right? Now I can use inside this function or any other subroutine, I can use the function myWhere, but I can't use the variable called insideWhere because the scope of insideWhere is only the subroutine this, right? So, so if I try to use my variable is equal to 10 and then you said message box myWhere, it will you can use this variable inside the my function because my variable is declared outside the subroutines or outside the function, right? So it's a kind of global variable, but inside variable is declared inside the subroutine, and if you try to use it, it will throw error. So if I said inside variable is equal to 20, and then if I try to run this function, it will throw an error, variable not defined. Now, in message box, when we are using any kind of uh, information to display, you can directly use any kind of hier object hierarchies with values, or you can store these values in a variable. So suppose if I uh, use a variable called uh, inside where is equal to worksheet range f10. Now I'm declaring it as a string because f10 value contains a string value. It contains a, sorry, it's a number. So, okay, we can use an integer also. Integer. And then we can use the variable inside where to show the value. Now to comment this, I can use rem keyword or apostrophe sign. Now if I run this module, again you can press F5 key or click on the run button. So it will showing the 112223, right? Now in VBA we can use the we can show the value of the variable, or you can use any string. So suppose this is data in cell F10 of datasheet. Now to concatenate two things, one is the variable and second is the string, we use ampersand sign. So ampersand is used for concatenation. A plus sign you can also use for the concatenation in case of the string. Remember, if you use plus sign with numbers, it will work as an addition operator. And if we use plus sign with the string, it will work as a concatenation character. So just to avoid confusion, we always use ampersand as a continuation character, as a concatenation character. Now then we can use ampersand multiple times. So uh, data in another cell is also available. So now if I run this macro, it will show in a single line. Now in VBA, ampersand is used as a concatenation character. And suppose if you have a very long string which you want to break in a multiple line so that you can read it smoothly, then in VBA we use line continuation character. So line continuation is you have to use ampersand for concatenation. Sorry, ampersand and then space and then underscore and then press enter. Now this is called line continuation character. So it will allow allow you to use your lines in multiple lines of the code window, right? It is just to help you. There is no impact on the output. So even if I go and run the program, it will show the result in a single line. So it is just making your code more readable. If you don't use this line continuation character and then try to use, it will give an error expected expression. So if you want to use a single expression, if you want to break a single line in a multiple lines, then after ampersand or any other character, give a space and then press underscore. Now, if you want to make a change in the output, so you can use, there are some string constant which you can use. So suppose I'm using uh, VB new line. So this is a string constant which is used inside the VBA. Now it will make an impact on the output. So now after this, all the characters will be displayed in a new line in the message box. So now run the macro and then it will show the line in a next line in message box. So again, the ampersand sign is used for the concatenation. Space followed by underscore is used as a line continuation character. VB new line or VB tab is used for as a string constant. So you can say ampersand and then you can use VB tab also. Again, to concatenate a string constant with a string or with a variable, we again every time we have to use ampersand. Now if I run the macro again, see this, it will, there is a space due to the tab. So in this way you can, use different string constant, line continuation character to make your code readable, right? Now let's understand how it will these works. So suppose I'm declaring two variables. So dim uh, value 1 is equal to 14 and now again see you can declare a value to a constant but you can't declare a value during the declaration, right? So you have to define as and then integer and then after that you can assign a value to a variable. You can do the declaration in a single line, but every time you have to define the data type. So that means if I say value val2 as integer. Remember, if you don't define any data type, VBA will not throw any error, but it will assign the data type of val2. In this case, will be variant, right? And variant is a data type which can contain any kind of value. And when we are doing any kind of calculation, then VBA will change the data type accordingly. But again, if you have a very long program and you are using multiple values, variables, then it will make your program very slow. So better define the appropriate data types. So val2 as integer, right? Now val1 is equal to 15, then val2 is equal to 20. Now if I say message box, and then I said addition. Then I said well 1 plus well 2. Similarly, to show the difference, can use hyphen. So difference ampersand for concatenation, and then we said well 1 minus well 2. Similarly, to show the multiplication, multiplication, then ampersand, and then we can say well 1 asterisk sign and then well 2. Similarly, to show the remainder part of the division, so we can say remainder ampersand well 1 mod well 2. Now again, this is a very long expression. So to make it more readable, we can use line continuation character. So after every new line, we can say space and then underscore and then press enter. Similarly, after this, I can say space followed by underscore, press enter. Now I have converted a long line into 3 lines. Now it is easy to understand or easy to read, right? Now I'm making this line commented. So I am using rem, or you can use, right? Now if I put your cursor inside the subroutine, press run, and then it will show the result. Again, there is no impact of the line continuation character in the result. So if I want to show all the results in a different line, I have to use a string constant. So after showing the addition, I can use VB new line, and then I can say I can copy it and then use after the difference, and then I can use after the line. Right now run the macro, and then it will show all the all the four calculation in a different line, in a separate line. This is due to the VB new line character. So in this way we can create the subroutines or the functions, and inside that we can declare the variables, constants, and then there are string constant, concatenation characters, the operators, which we can use to declare or to store the values. Again, make sure that you are defining the correct data type, otherwise it will throw an error. I'll give you another example where I'm saying dim result as integer. Now if I use result equals to well1 divided by well2, and division is used for the division operator. So if I use this run, it will show this. Okay, so result is well1 divided by well2, message box result. It will give you the correct result 1, right? But it is showing only the integer part, right? It is not giving you the complete part. So to show the correct part, you have to use it as a double. So when you type it double and then run the program, then it will give you the correct value. So make sure you are defining the data type correctly, else it will show the it will not show the values as the expectation. Now again, I want to write one more program. So just to make a difference between the global variable and the local variable. So remember that I already told you that we can't use a variable which is declared inside a subroutine in another subroutine or another function, right? Now, if I want to pass any value from a one subroutine to another subroutine, you can use the word call. So if I within the subroutine, if I use call keyword and then the any subroutine name or the function name, that automatically it will call the function. So it means it says that when the my first program will run, at the end it will call the my function and then it will display this. Now suppose if I am commenting this line, now it will say message box mywhere and here the my variable is not set anywhere. So let me say my where is here and my where as double, right? So the calculation is happening inside the subroutine, but the value is stored in the myWhere, which is a global variable, and then this variable we can use in another subroutine or functions also. So when I so let me comment this line also and this line also. So now when I run this program, it will give me the correct result, right? So let me enter one more string. This is inside function so that we can understand this is due to the my function, right? So now run this and then this is inside function 0.75. So now automatically we can use the variables which is declared inside one subroutine or function. We can use another, but for that you have to declare the variable outside the subroutines. There are other keywords called public, which is used public and then any variable name, my variable name as integer. Now, when you define a variable as a public, it means that this variable we can use another sheets or the workbook also. Currently, we are not writing any code here because this is used only for the event handling, which we will learn in the further sessions. But mm, just remember these things that when you are defining a variable inside a module as a dim, then you can use these variable inside the module only. If you declare a variable inside the subroutine, then you can use this variable inside the subroutine only. But if you declare a variable as a public and outside the subroutine, then it means you can use this variable not only this module but also in other workbooks or worksheet also. Now we said that option explicit keyword is an important thing because if you define this inside your module, then VBA will not allow you to use any variable without declaring. So if you want that VBA automatically add this line in any code window automatically, then you can make a change in your configuration setting. So for that, go to the tools and then select options. Now these options are very important and you must keep it as is. Don't make any changes in this because all the options will help you while you are writing the macros, right? So automatically it will show the quick infos, it will automatically list the members or the functions or the properties, right? Automatically it will check the syntax and it will throw the error when you are writing your code, right? So everything is helpful. Don't make any changes. The second option is by default not selected. So select this option and then it says require variable declaration, which means that whenever you create a new module or a new file, automatically option explicit will be added. So click OK. Now if I go into the modules and then say insert a module, so automatically option explicit keyword is added. So in this way, you can declare our variables, the subroutines, the functions, and then use our variables, and then you can, access the value from the Excel sheet, and also you can store the value from VBA to any Excel sheet. So similarly, if I use this one and my where is showing any value is storing the value of value 1 divided by value 2. Now if I want to show this value in the Excel sheet, we will use again the same object hierarchy, right? So my object hierarchy, although it starts from application.workbooks, but again, because we are using the Microsoft Excel, we are using the same workbook, so there is no need to define these two things. We will start from the worksheets and then in the worksheets we will specify the worksheet name. So suppose in the worksheet data and then we want to save the value in a range, say H5 equals to mywhere, and then you can say message box data saved. Now I'm commenting this line so that it will not call the function. Now run the macro and then it says data saved. The code calculation is saved in the H5. So in this way, using the object hierarchy from VBA, you can communicate with the Excel sheets. So this is all about the session number one, where we have understand that how we can declare our subroutine and functions, and then how we can declare the variables, how can we access the values available in the Excel sheet, how we can store the value from VBA to Excel sheet, how to declare, how to create the modules, right? And how to use option explicit, how to define and declare variables, what is the meaning of global or the local variable, what is the meaning of the public and dim keyword, what are the key points which we have to remember while creating any variable name or any subroutine name or the function name, right? So these are the key things which you have to remember. Do the practice, do the mistakes, do lot of calculations so that you can understand how all these things we can use, because in further sessions we will not explain each and everything every time. Obviously if you have any kind of issue or even if you are unable to understand, you can ask anytime and I will help you, but do the practice for this session, and then we will do the next session on Friday, same time. So let me know if the date and time is comfortable for you, and then we can join. Thanks for joining the session.